and in Afghanistan didn't help them much on that front.
Lincoln is taking the stage. Let's take a listen.
Good afternoon. First, let me say how honored I am by the presence of so many friends, colleagues, leaders across different communities here in Germany, and also leaders in the partnership that links our two countries. I'm grateful to all of you for being here, and grateful for this opportunity as well to be at the Academy of Sciences and Humanities. I heard a little bit from Sigmar about the history, briefly walked the hallways, and I very much appreciate this hospitality. But it's an institution with an extraordinary tradition of scholarship, discovery, stretching back more than 300 years. And I understand that among other luminaries, Albert Einstein was a member here. So I should probably let you know that my remarks today will include very little about astrophysics, which will be to everyone's benefit. I want to thank all the institutions that are co-hosting us, including Atlantic Brücke. By the way, my own history with the Brücke, the bridge, goes back well more than 20 years. I remember very well spending time with visiting colleagues from Germany during the Clinton administration. But it's a pleasure to be with you, the German Marshall Fund, the Aspen Institute, the American Council on Germany, and I can't not acknowledge a great friend, colleague, going back to my university days, the Clinton administration, the Obama administration, Dan Benjamin. It's wonderful to see you as well. Over the years, these organizations have helped build, strengthen, and deepen the ties between our countries. One of the markers of a strong democracy is a robust, independent civil society. And I'm grateful to our co-hosts for their contributions to democracy on both sides of the Atlantic. And again, for bringing us together today. So, as Sigmar said, and as all of you know, I have come to Berlin at a moment of great urgency for Europe, for the United States, and I would argue for the world. Russia is continuing to escalate its threat toward Ukraine. We've seen that again in just the last few days with increasingly bellicose rhetoric, building up its forces on Ukraine's borders, including now in Belarus. Russia's repeatedly turned away from agreements that have kept the peace across the continent for decades. And it continues to take aim at NATO, a defensive voluntary alliance that protects nearly 1 billion people across Europe and North America, and at the governing principles of international peace and security that we all have a stake in defending. Those principles, established in the wake of 2 world wars and a Cold War, reject the right of one country to change the borders of another by the policies it pursues or the choices it makes, including with whom to associate. Sovereign neighbors to its will. To allow Russia to violate those principles with impunity would drag us all back to a much more dangerous and unstable time, when this continent and this city were divided in 2, separated by no man's lands, patrolled by soldiers, with the threat of all-out war hanging over everyone's heads. It would also send a message to others around the world that these principles are expendable, and that, too, would have catastrophic results. That's why the United States and our allies and partners in Europe have been so focused on what's happening in Ukraine. It's bigger than a conflict between 2 countries. It's bigger than Russia and NATO. It's a crisis with global consequences. And it requires global attention and action. Here today, among this rapidly unfolding situation, I'd like to try to cut through to the facts of the matter. To begin, Russia claims that this crisis is about its national defense, about military exercises, weapon systems, and security agreements. Now, if that's true, we can resolve things peacefully and diplomatically. There are steps we can take, the United States, Russia, the countries of Europe, to increase transparency, reduce risks, advance arms control, build trust. We've done this successfully in the past, and we can do it again. And indeed, it's what we set out to do last week in the discussions that we put forward at the Strategic Stability Dialogue between the United States and Russia, at the NATO-Russia Council, and at the OSCE. At those meetings and many others, the United States and our European allies and partners have repeatedly reached out to Russia with offers of diplomacy in a spirit of reciprocity. So far, our readiness to engage in good faith has been rebuffed. Because in truth, this crisis is not primarily about weapons or military bases. It's about the sovereignty and self-determination of Ukraine and all states. And at its core, it's about Russia's rejection of a post-Cold War Europe that is whole, free, and at peace. For all our profound concerns with Russia's aggression, provocations, political interference, including against the United States, the Biden administration has made clear our willingness to pursue a more stable, predictable relationship, to negotiate arms control agreements like the renewal of New START, and launch our strategic stability dialogue, to pursue common action to address the climate crisis and work in common cause to revive the Iran nuclear deal. And we appreciate how Russia has engaged with us in these efforts. And despite Moscow's reckless threats against Ukraine and dangerous military mobilization, despite its obfuscation and disinformation, the United States, together with our allies and partners, have offered a diplomatic path out of this contrived crisis. And that's why I've returned to Europe. Ukraine yesterday, Germany here today, Switzerland tomorrow, where I'll meet with Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov and once again seek diplomatic solutions. The United States would greatly prefer those to be the case and certainly prefer diplomacy to the alternatives. We know our partners in Europe feel the same way. So do people and families across the continent, because they know that they will bear the greatest burden if Russia rejects diplomacy. And we look to countries beyond Europe, to the international community as a whole, to make clear the cost to Russia if it seeks conflict, and to stand up for all the principles that protect all of us. So let's look plainly at what's at stake right now, who will actually be affected, and who is responsible.
If Russia unleashes ballistic missiles, artillery, and with air...
US President
Kebanjiran notif dan kewalahan menjawab pertanyaan pelanggan yang itu-itu aja? Atau capek pindah-pindah aplikasi untuk cek ongkir dan
tensions between Ukraine, ABC's Stephanie
will not start a war with Ukraine, but the U.S. says Russia is in a position to invade.